So this, once we've done the webinar, it will be available on Council's website and Council's YouTube video for anyone that misses tonight or is interested in catching up or re-watching. I'd firstly like to acknowledge that we are on Wurundjeri country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Tonight is the first of 4 in a series on carbon farming. We have Louisa Kiely here as our carbon farming expert. Thank you very much, Louisa, for giving up your evenings and your wine time to be here with us. Louisa has a Bachelor of Agricultural Economics and is the Director of Carbon Farmers of Australia. She has a wealth of knowledge in all things carbon farming and has been at the forefront of carbon farming in Australia. In 2006, Louisa co-founded the Carbon Coalition Against Global Warming, and in 2007 hosted the first carbon farming conference, in the world's first. Next year, Carbon Farmers of Australia will host their 10th carbon farming conference. I think the link to that is available on Louisa's website, Carbon Farmers of Australia. Louisa is incredibly passionate about all things carbon farming and the opportunities carbon farming can bring to address climate change while promoting biodiversity, resilient food systems and thriving communities. I'll hand over to you, Louisa. I'll also mention, yes, this is recorded, no need to scramble taking notes. There are plenty of resources available on Louisa's website if you're wanting more information, and we are going to pause for questions regularly, so you don't need to keep track of what's happening in the chat, just put your question in if you're interested. And over to you.
Okay, so you need to give me control, yeah? Yeah, because you need to see my share screen. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I can too. And then I'll just get rid of that. God, we're almost getting good at this. Amazing. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see it, Stephanie? If you can,
yeah,
then
looks
everybody
good.
can.
It's good.
Okay, fantastic. So, yes, welcome to everyone. Now, it's harder for me to see the chat, Stephanie, when I'm doing this. So, you stop me.
We'll manage that
as well.
No worries.
It's true that we are passionate, and we have been passionate about this ever since we found out that you could scrub the air of carbon by using photosynthetic activity, and that farmers are in charge of photosynthetic activity all over the world. So we came from a marketing background. We put that together with a burgeoning or a beginning carbon market back in 2007. That's right, that was my first carbon farming conference. However, there wasn't a market at that time. Now we are a market worth $2 billion here in Australia, and we are at the forefront of it. And so we've got a chance to stay at the forefront. However, I better get going. So what I'm going to give you this evening is 101. I'm going to assume no knowledge. So, and I probably will talk quite fast, because there's always, when you begin this, a lot of information. It's very information dense. It's got some acronyms. It's got some, things like that, an ACCU, an ANRU account, all sorts of strange and wonderful things to get into this market. But the way to get more knowledgeable is just to keep on absorbing information. And Gunnar, as I said, who is here from the almond industry, is doing just that. So, and that's where we'll start from. So ask questions. There are another 3 of these. So we'll just see how we go. And if I don't start, I won't get through. Okay, so this is just to say, I'm not a financial advisor. Carbon Farmers of Australia does have the required financial services licence in order to be able to talk to farmers about trading carbon, but I can't tell you about what to do with your savings or anything like that. But this is general information here this evening, and you need to make all your own inquiries as well. And it's a learning curve. When we first started, it was a learning curve, and so and now it's still there. One of the issues we have is there's nowhere to go for education. So this is your education. So just to, why am I standing up here? Well, sitting here these days. Why am I sitting here talking about this? We were farmers in the central west of New South Wales for 18 years. We farmed fine wool, and you can see from the photograph who did the work on the farm, because I'm the only one in work clothes and everyone else is dressed in their town clothes, because actually the land came that day and they were taking some photographs and asking some questions. So we were on 1,700 acres, but we learned about the carbon farming thing and how you could take carbon out of the air using photosynthetic activity. And then we went on a learning and listening tour, as the politicians so love to say. I don't ever read all of my slides. They're for you there later on, but just to say that as soon as we found out about this, we went on an extensive learning journey, which also concluded with starting a carbon farming conference and expo. 2007 was the first. 2022 will be the 10th, because we had COVID just after our 2019 one. So we're able to now pick this up. And so I now live, I keep body and soul together by selling carbon. And this business has come about simply because of the way that they have structured the market. I didn't set out to be a carbon project development partner, but in order to assist farmers, that's what we needed to do, and that's how come we now have this carbon farming business. We sell carbon into the ERF market, emissions reduction market. Our overriding legislation is called the Carbon Farming Initiative, and what sits under that is called the Emissions Reduction Fund, or now the Climate Solutions Fund. And that is where the $2 billion has come from. The government has paid for these carbon credits, as well as now corporates and other people. So we've developed from a government market, and we're now developing into a proper market with demand from the corporates. I'll talk about that later. A CAC is a carbon abatement contract. My farmers hold a carbon abatement contract with the government for the delivery of carbon credits, ACCUs, Australian Carbon Credit Units, into the future. And they can have that for up to 10 years. Then we can also sell into the secondary market. That is when a corporate, BHP, and any of them that have shareholders, they need to show responsibility for the known issue of climate change. And so they are buying offsets to offset their emissions. And that's the secondary market in Australia. Currently, that market is at $26. My farmers who have a fixed delivery contract with the government have got between $10 and $14. The $14 was in 2021, September 2021. Here we are. No, that is not where we are. So it's September 2020. So in 1 year, it's gone from 14 through to 26. So these are real figures. This is what is happening right now. If you had 10,000 tonnes right now, I could get it. I could get you $26 for it on the open. And there it is. Even since I wrote these slides, it's gone from 1930. So this is an industry. Now, this is our farm of the future, and it is now happening. This is happening. So, and then I'll show you a bit later as well. So on a farm right now, if you're in, what you are, if you're on a farm, is the manager of a biodiverse carbon asset. Carbon's got a price now. Carbon's got a market. You're not just a beef farmer or a, sheep, wool, whatever's meat. In some areas, you could have a renewable energy project. Not everywhere, I understand that, but you can have solar, and there's much more solar coming on board still to come. Water credits are happening. You can get a reef credit for reducing the amount of nitrous oxide and nitrogen flowing into the reef by changing your fertiliser habits. Now, that is only in Queensland, doesn't matter. All of these are setting precedents. The carbon offset market is the one I'm talking about. People offset their carbon footprint, and farmers sell them the carbon that they need to lower their footprint. Biodiversity credits, they're everywhere now. It's the talk of the town, is to sell the biodiversity or the co-benefits. So one co-benefit of a soil carbon project, for instance, if you enter into a soil carbon project to be paid for the increases in the carbon in your soils, your co-benefits are an increase in water holding capacity in that soil and an improved soil structure. And now they are willing to start to pay for those type of benefits, but also for saving habitat, improving habitat when you do carbon projects. Agroforestry, there is one of the government programs at the moment. Agroforestry is just agriculture with trees, and that can also start to be rewarded now. It's not actually the farm of the future anymore. This is the farm. This is what farms are. This is just to show you we were tree changers into our 1,700 acres in the central west of New South Wales. It was just me always wanting to have a farm, and off I went when the children got old enough. And so we came into the Millennial Drought, and that was the 2005-2007. Droughts always finish with floods. This is our property, and we had 75 mils in 35 minutes. Any of the sheep farmers that are with us tonight knows that a shearer will not go anywhere near a wet sheep. Q fever and all sorts of other things can happen. And so this dear lad of ours, you can see we had a little bit of a hydrology problem right there. That is actually our boundary, however, that was our boundary. However, our son was managing at the time, and it was actually John Howard's time. And John Howard told us that we better adapt to climate change. They're still telling us that we're going to need to adapt. And you can see the state of the country behind there. We were feeding our sheep at that time, and then he was to enjoy the ride. Now, that's really bad hydrology. Any of you that are interested in slowing the speed of water across your paddocks and across your landscape, fabulous stuff. This is just at our boundary here, and it's all headed towards Yumbi River, the Cudgegong River and the Yumbi Creek. But what we had done, if it'll go for me, go down. What we had done is we had, in the very early days of confinement, we had put our sheep in what used to be called a sacrifice paddock. Now they're just called confinement paddocks or on-farm feedlots for sheep, and they're much better organised than what we had. We simply put our sheep in the toughest paddocks, the hilliest, with the most shelter and some water, and kept the good river flats free and kept them off. Well, we had been trained in holistic management. We were trained by the late, great Bruce Ward, if anyone in the room is a holistic manager. And so, we knew about saving the paddocks, and then, I don't know why it's going so slow. Maybe it's it could be the internet. Hang on, let's see if that one will do it. There we go. this was the outcome as well. So people on, used to say, well, you've done something different on that on the right-hand side, you've farmed it, you've done it, things like that. No, that is not true. That is simply rest. And so, we rested it. And this also convinced us of what we were teaching and what we were saying and what we'd heard about what farmers could do if you have more solar panels catching more carbon and taking that carbon down into the soil and improving your soils. In the early days, there was a lot of disbelief about climate change. And so we used to say to farmers, don't worry, you don't need to believe in climate change, believe in a market. So it's not a personal thing, it's a market-based thing. And my husband used to say on a slide, how do you get a message through to a farmer? And the answer to that is on a check. And that is to say, farmers are business people. And here we were, and this is a market. And therefore, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in climate change. But now this is not just a market, it's a very viable market. At $26 a tonne, you're now really starting to get to the point where a lot of the methods are affordable. And you might say, well, what happens if the price goes down and all of those things? It's, in my opinion, and I have been in this since 2005, in my opinion, the demand for climate change action is now so high that the supply of credits will not meet the demand. And so I think we are very safe in that the price of carbon will go up. Remember, if you planted a tree today under a carbon farming method, and I'll talk about methods in a minute, if you planted that tree today in a carbon farming project under a method, it wouldn't be for 3 years that you could claim your credit. So now is the time to think about this. Get yourself organised. Do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? I don't mind. But what I'm saying is that it takes time to build carbon either in trees or in soils, which are the two most likely ones in your district that you're likely to be able to do. So just let me take a sip here. The other point on this slide is that if we don't engage, if farmers don't engage, I still call myself a farmer. I'm on 5 acres in the central west of New South Wales now because, for health reasons, we've moved to town, blah. But if farmers don't engage with this potential market, others will engage. And I'm talking all the corporates, and I'm talking carbon capture and storage. There's a lot of impetus on that side of things as well. If farmers don't engage with this, not only can they not earn a carbon credit, but we're likely to be hit with the stick of regulation. And if there's one thing farmers really hate, it's regulation. So, and it's already the government we're getting hit internationally because our carbon targets are not ambitious enough. And they're talking about putting carbon tariffs on us. So, would you like an income or a stick, at least to see if you're interested in it? So that's far more of a danger, to my mind, than the price of carbon falling. So we're in an interesting position. We're most affected by climate change. We're the major sink. That is to say, the farmers can store the most amount of carbon due to their control of over 50% of the land mass of the world. So they are in charge of photosynthetic activity, and in my mind, they've always been the VIPs, but they have to, engage in order to do that. And by the way, people do still want to eat, and so agriculture must be part of this solution. We did this. When we taught some people a long time ago. Some people may be time control graziers in here, or they may be some form of rotational grazing in here. in which case most people who do that have the feeling that the animals are not the problem, it's the way we use the animals, because methane became a really big issue. It's still a big issue, but not as big. And so this person who did our course was a holistic manager, and he wrote this bumper sticker, "The best environmentalist I know is a cow," which I think is just great. And I still love it, and I still show it, because people, you know, we've got the vegans, and look, everyone can have their own way of eating. That's not a problem at all. But they need to look to see, is it the cow, or is it the way we're treating the cow, or those things. So as a holistic manager, we always believed that livestock could improve your photosynthetic activity. This was what we used to say to the world and whoever would listen at the beginning, that the flow-on effects of not, this is soil carbon, but it's not just soil carbon, it's tree carbon, it's carbon farming, it's the market. Everybody knows that if a farmer's well off, the farming district is well off. So, you know, the idea that the farmer used to buy a new car every time the wool check came in, you know, things like that. But slowly this is coming to fruition as well. As I've just said, the biodiversity markets, these other markets are coming to play. And we believe that the money can flow back into the rural communities that are suffering. This was us. Our name was Yumbi, a very historic property with a 40-person cemetery on it, as it was, taken up by a indentured labourer. So we did this actually just for a bit of fun. We didn't have any certification, but we thought, what a great, you know, piece of fun to take that to the market and have people just ask questions about, you know, what did it mean and things like that. So we only did it that 1 year, and but the idea is that you can brand what you're doing. If you're a farmer with a brand and a carbon credit, you could have the Yumbi carbon credited wool. And now I would have the paperwork behind that, and I would be able to show what that means, because the market has developed. This was when people wouldn't really think about it, but I like that photo a lot as well. So the principles behind this trade. So what is carbon trading? What the heck is it? So the thing is that CO2 is a very good thing to trade, because a ton of CO2 saved here is just as good as a ton of CO2 saved somewhere else. And so if country A, let's call it Singapore, almost no agricultural area, tiny little place, how is it going to offset its CO2 emissions if it's got targets at the Paris Agreement that it's going to do it? Oh, well, no problems. We can buy it from an Australian farmer. Now, that Australian farmer, in order to earn that credit, has planted 10 hectares of trees. And guess what? He's sold you the CO2, but he's kept the shade and shelter. This is the only commodity that's ever happened, I believe. If anyone can prove me wrong, happy to take that on board. What other product can you sell and keep the benefit on farm? You've got to ship the wool off, you've got to ship the sheep off, you've got to ship the wheat off. You don't get the benefit of eating the wheat or any of those things. But when you do a carbon farming trade, you save the carbon, it's in the trees that you've planted, you sell it to Singapore, but you keep the shade and shelter. I just love it. That's, you know, and that's why people say we're passionate. But in the old days, we used to say, yeah, but you can't eat it. So to have the passion was one thing, but, you know, you had to have a way of turning it into an income as well. So you may have heard of these things or even been confused by this, because there's two distinct ways to lower the carbon load in the sky. And one is to lower the emissions. And when you lower emissions, it means you don't allow that emission to go up in the air. So you turn off your lights, you use solar, you use an electric vehicle, all of these things. They prevent the carbon from going up in the air. However, what farmers do is sequester carbon, which is they take carbon out of the air using photosynthetic activity. A solar panel called leaves of trees, photosynthesize, take the carbon out of the air, use it in their own structures, take it down into their roots for the microbes as liquid carbohydrates. So we are in charge, farmers are in charge of the sequestration. BHP can't sequester a thing, even if it decides to lower its emissions by X amount. And that note down there is perfectly true, and I sit in all the industry things, and they understand this now. Only removal from the air can keep the world from reaching the 2 degrees that's in the Paris Agreement that will stop us from the worst effects of climate change. And we've already reached 1.5. So there's a huge job to be done by the farmers, and people that aren't farmers are becoming aware of it. And it operates through tradable certificates. Now, this is a piece of jargon. This is the one you'll need to potentially look back on. In Australia, we call them Australian Carbon Credit Units. Now, you can go around tomorrow and say, I learned about ACCUs last night, and they'll look at you funny, but they're Australian Carbon Credit Units, and they represent a tonne of CO2. And the currency, and here's the other really good thing, CO2e is a carbon dioxide equivalent, and it's a tonne of carbon times 3.67. When you plant that tree and the plant starts to sequester, it sequesters carbon, and it does all those things that we've just spoken about. What you sell is a tonne of CO2e, and it's 3.67 times a tonne of carbon, just because of the equivalency between a tonne of C and the currency, which is CO2e. So you store 1 tonne of carbon and you can sell 3.67 tonnes of CO2. It's really another fabulous thing about this for farmers, in that we get this multiplier effect. However, it's not easy to store a tonne of carbon, don't get me wrong there, but every tonne that you show that you can store, you can sell 3.67 tonnes of CO2. Methane is 25 times as bad as CO2. So if you keep 1 tonne of methane from going up in the air, you can earn 25 or 24. Those numbers keep changing. Tonnes of CO2 equivalent. So we have at the moment, as I've said up the front, we've got a $2 billion industry. Have you seen any? Well, it's time to get in and think about it. Again, it's not for everybody. I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm just saying do your research and see if it makes you interested. The Paris Agreement, and it's called 6.2, is the trading part of Paris, and it still hasn't been sorted through as to who will be allowed to trade. Right now, I can't export an ACCU into any other country because the government wants to claim it here. They're desperate for it. So if I've earned it, they want it to go to another Australian company, and I can only deal with somebody who has an ANRU account. This slide actually says there's around 100 million left. That's now in a different fund, but that's okay. There is still money in these funds. There's another $1.5 billion that can keep this process going. And let's say that the 2 bill has potentially taken the lower hanging fruit, which now means that farmers who can do soil carbon and tree planting are becoming more important because they've used the other ones. It's not just farmers that can use the ERF or the Climate Solutions Fund. We've got competition. We've got competition from the big corporates who want to be able to be paid to reduce their emissions, and the government will allow them to do it. And if they take all the money, well, then there's none for farmers. The methods are LAW law. First thing about methods that you've just learned. Methods are LAW law. And therefore, they have to be followed precisely. That's why I've got a business, is because the methods are LAW law and they are complex. And you need to be guided in order that you can pass audits and things like that. I advocate for education all of the time. I was on the phone to Monash Union today saying we need to get more education. We need to get more people educated. Right now, the only way you can learn is in the school of hard knocks. Either you go out and put a method in by yourself, which you can, or you come to a project partner such as Carbon Farmers of Australia. We're little, we're boutique size. Yeah, there are 2-3 really big guys out there. Now, the aggregation is something I'm not going to go into tonight because this is 101, but the potential is there. People like land cares and other groups, a beef group, a sheep group, a wool group, any of those have got potential to aggregate or put farmers together. If you've only got a small parcel, your best bet might be to aggregate with other people. Unfortunately, I don't think councils are allowed to aggregate, but you know, land cares and other people like that. And I'm happy to talk about that. So the project methodology is rules, and it's the recipe book, and you have to follow it. So now we're on to the methods, okay, as to how you actually put a project in. Actually put a project in using and following a method which is LAW law. And that's the other reason why I exist, is because it's LAW law. And so you go, if you do something wrong, you're going, you know, well, you just don't get your credits. And that's a shame. So it's got everything in there that you have to do. Now, and it's consistent with the relevant scientific results. So you don't have to worry, let's say in soil carbon, you don't have to worry, oh, you know, we don't even know if soil carbon can be increased, you know, where's the scientific evidence? Well, once it's a method, which is LAW law, it's been proven. So you don't need to ask that question anymore. We still get that question sometimes, and we've got it for a long time, but it won't become a method until the Clean Energy Regulator, who approves the methods, there you go, there's your next piece of information. The Clean Energy Regulator approves the methods. So all of these methods, there's 26 of them, have been approved by the Clean Energy Regulator. And there are other things. Soil carbon, potentially the most important because soil carbon covers most of the earth. So it's potentially the most important method due to the size of the sink. We are now up to the 3rd iteration of the soil carbon. So, and we are the only country that has traded soil carbon units in the world. There are others catching up. There are other methods, international methods. So the ERF and the Climate Solution Fund are Australian methods. There are international methods. And so people like me are trying to figure out, is it better if I use an Australian method, or can I give my farmers an international method? And how, you know, how do they marry up? All of those things to give farmers more choice is the idea. It's not that easy, but you know, that's where we're headed. I've talked about those co-benefits before as well. This is just to show you that other industries can also get a carbon credit. These are our competitors, coal miners, those guys. Nothing against coal miners either. It's just, I'm just showing you that the farmers are not the only people that can earn an ACCU. And there are certain sectors of the country that are really keen to get into this. So that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that farmers engage. Direct action, this is just how many people, there are many projects in Queensland under this system. Only 5 of the 26 available methods are being widely used, and that's because the methods, I was going to say stink, but I didn't say that. The methods, their calculations are fairly conservative. So, but there's a register of projects. You can go and look at the projects that are all registered under this system and who's got them. So when you go to do something like this, this is the sort of thing that you need to think about. You've got to think about your price per tonne, your tonnes per hectare, your hectares that are enrolled. You know, that's your inside, you know, coming in, going out. Yeah, you're going to have to use a changed land management. That's okay. We're probably going to do that anyway. Cost of baselining and monitoring, middleman cost, that's me, contract duration and permanence liability. You may have heard about the 100-year rule and the 25-year rule. I don't have time to talk about that right at the moment, but I'm happy to do that at any stage as well. You do not have to have a 100-year project and lock your place up for 100 years. You can have a 25-year project and you can get paid for up to 25 years. And then if you wanted to, you could plough the whole place back up again. So it was a big, your ACCUs are discounted if you choose 25. They're details that we can go into if we get any deeper. So which are the activities that you can use? These are the most ones that are mostly used by farmers out of the 26 that are available. You can store the carbon in soil, protect or maintain the existing native forest under certain circumstances, plant seeds or seedlings to establish a permanent forest. So that one is called environmental plantings. It's a really good one for your type of situation potentially, as is soil carbon. You can establish a forest plantation for harvesting, and you can let degraded land revert to native forest. This is, generally speaking, large areas. Our biggest farm or conglomeration of farms for this one here, let degraded land, is 130,000 hectares. But there's lots of moves afoot to try and make smaller farmers more able to do this. Restoring grassy woodlands that's just another one that I really like. That was our back paddock in a good year. And these are a few of the other things that you can do. They do have methods, but they're not really applicable in your circumstances. Mainly this one is because I wish I could give this one. I wish I could get a smaller farmer onto these, but it requires things like 10,000 head to make it financially viable at the moment. Now that's just a weakness in that method that needs to be fixed. But methods are LAW law, therefore I could put it in to a much smaller farm, but it'd be financially, totally unviable. This is what we do. We look at the whole of the farm. It's just that I know enough to know that those two methods that I've given you are the most applicable in your sort of circumstances. And you ask yourself, you don't have to put your whole farm in. You can if you've got a reasonable, if you've got, 500 hectares, for instance, you could put in 250 hectares of a soil carbon project, and you can suck it and see. And you can see how it goes over the next couple of years. Oh, this is great. I'm going to put the other 250 in. And meanwhile, what you've done is extended your income as well, because this first 250 hectares might be due for a credit year 3. And then you've started this one in year, one of those years. this one goes for 25 years, this one goes for 25 years. So you've extended it out to, 25, 30 years of a potential income. Meanwhile, finding out whether or not you like it, all of those things. It has to be conducted in Australia, have to have a method, you have to do something new. So, as a grazier, for instance, if I've got, and as a time control grazier or a holistic manager, if I had, 30 paddocks and I had plans to increase that to 35, well, that's new. So, and there's a whole list of things that you can do now that you can take part in a soil carbon. Almost anything you can think of, but not quite anything, but almost anything. Compost, green manure crops, improvement in grazing management, multi-species pasture cropping, biological fertilizers, Charlie carb, worms, so long as they have got sufficient evidence to show you that what you're going to do is going to increase soil carbon. So you ask them, what's your evidence? Which is where my conference comes in, because I get 35 exhibitors, all incredibly happy to show the farmers why you should be using their product to increase your soil carbon. Uncrowned land, I don't think we have to deal with that. This makes a complex process in 6 steps. This is the absolute outline. You apply to register. You apply to register and you get registered. You open an ANRU account, an Australian National Register of Emissions Unit account. That is where your carbon credits will be put into. And you will sell them out of your ANRU account. So the tons of carbon that have been approved and audited get put into your ANRU account, and then you are free to sell them to somebody else from your ANRU account, either the government, secondary market, those. But that person must also have an ANRU account. That's a detail. You register, you undertake the project, you bid into the auction if you wish. So you can bid in for one of those carbon abatement contracts. Now, in the old days, they were fixed contracts. Now I've got 3 farmers with optional contracts at about $14.25. So we bid into the auction. We got a price of $14.25 for delivery over 10 years, over a 10-year program. However, it's an optional contract. If, when it comes time and those credits are in that ANRU account, I could get my farmer $26, which I could right now, I don't have to deliver into that contract. They are now optional contracts. So this is part of this evolving nature of this industry, and it's becoming easier, and it's becoming, the feds want this, the minister wants it, and so the Clean Energy Regulator who regulates us will give it to them. You have to submit an offsets report and have it audited, not every time, but the first time. Apply for credits once the audit's passed. Credits are issued, and you deliver them to the contract if you've got one. But you can have a project without bidding into that auction. Do not think that you have to bid into that auction. You can get your credits. You can put them into the ANRU account. You haven't got a government contract, no problems. I'm going to sell into the secondary market, or maybe I'm going to keep them and put them against my own farm if you want to go down that carbon neutral path. But that's a whole different conversation as well. People are doing, this is just visually, how am I going? 10 minutes. And we haven't, have we got any questions, Stephanie, or?
We've got from Linda, what is the minimum farm size to commence a carbon project?
Under the environmental plantings, which is the tree planting, minimum size is 0.2 of a hectare. Good news. However, You won't make a buck out of 0.2 of a hectare. But 0.2 of a hectare, and the areas do not have to be contiguous. So if you want to put shade and shelter in one paddock, and that's 5 hectares, and shade and shelter in another paddock, and that's 5 hectares, they can both be part of the same project. So with the price of carbon going up, the areas are becoming smaller. There's some government help as well, potentially. So this is what I've been talking about in a visual sense. It's all single farmers, and if they wish, they can be put together under an aggregator. They don't have to, though. They can also just go straight through here to the retail farm gate or through to the carbon exchanges as well. This is all of the information, all of the record keeping, all of those things, quite high record keeping requirements. Remember that you're selling air. And so they need to know quite a lot about what you've been doing in order to, save this air from going up. So quite high admin, which is why I'm here as well. So, that's just the way that it's been, sort of set up. This voluntary standard is your method. There's your auditor. They keep some, you all go into a pool of carbon. There's a buffer pool, a risk of reversal pool. Then you can sell through to the carbon exchanges or the brokers, and then the corporate market. So, quite a number of different ways that you can sell, and that's only going to increase and get better. Do I have another question there, Stephanie?
In Nillumbik, are there any planning regulations that might be barriers, e.g. in the rural conservation zone areas? So have you come across that in other areas?
Yeah, look, you can't contravene any of those types of things. So that is something that you check out as you go into it, yeah? So you do need to think about that. Now, this is the Emissions Reduction Fund, 23rd of April 2021. There is just about to be another auction right now, so almost every April and then September. So this is just to show you, this is what the government's done, okay? They have contracted 6.8 million tonnes. Oh, this was just at this bar here. This is just the 12th auction. Just the 12th auction, not overall, okay? At the 12th auction, 12 auctions, can you believe that? They contracted 6.8 million tonnes at an average price of 15.99, and there was 108.3 million tonnes committed, and that brought the total committed since they started to 2.5 billion tonnes. That's the 2.5 billion tonne industry. The top 3 methods were facilities, that is people who promise to reduce their emissions, landfill and waste, you prevent landfill from, turning into methane, and vegetation is soils, trees, and regrowth. Here's those contracts I was just telling you about. One fixed contract. Why would you go for a fixed contract when you can get an optional contract? It's literally a floor price now here, and 10 projects. So, that's the sort of thing that happens at one auction. And then this is, looking at it in a different way. 108 million committed, 2.5, and then 66 million is already delivered. 138.9 million still has to be delivered, because remember, they're 10-year contracts. So they go for 10 years, and only 43 have been completed, and 461. So all of mine are about 4 or 5 years along, and that's about average, because you get a 10-year contract, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago. This is just very quickly to show you, because I'm starting to run out of time. Vegetation, look, way up the top. But that is mainly that forest regrowth in very marginal lands across a very large area of land. These are lands that have been overgrazed by often in Western New South Wales by goats, and you control the goats to regrow the forest. So, and it's just the easiest method with the best abatement. So it's just, you know, it's a no-brainer, and so that's what you end up with. Landfill and waste is specialised, you need specialised equipment. Agriculture is methane and soil carbon and a couple of others. Dairy, savanna burning is up north. They swap over a hot burn for a cool burn. You save CO2 going up. Energy efficiency, you turn off lights, you turn off lights. Industrial fugitives, that's the one where you capture it from a coal mine and you turn the methane into CO2 and you get the difference. And transport is the smallest of them all. So these are the real figures. This is what's happening. This is what the thing is. So they just want to tell you how much has been delivered abatement by method there. So this was the bit that I've just put in because this is what's happening. As I said, the farm of the future is here. Payment for co-benefits is here. And now it's a case of keeping your eye on it. So for you, Victoria, and the feds, okay? And for me, well, I've got to do the whole country. But in the beginning, and it really was like that, in the beginning, it was thought that farmers might undertake carbon farming for the co-benefits. Farmers should do this. Look, they'll get better water holding capacity and they'll get better soil structure. They've got the little bit that said farmers are business people. And if you want to get a message through to a farmer, you get it on a check. Anyway, they've learned a lot since then. So more shade and shelter for farmers. We've been through this. As I've been going through, I've been telling you about that. The best mechanism is you know, on a check. These people are business people, and they're savvy business people. However, it's been recognised that we must also attend to biodiversity for resilience, and it's easier for certain sectors to understand as well. But it's quite an amazing thing that these two things have now been put together, carbon. And the reason why they can also now, states are moving their own, so the concept of ACCU plus has arisen. That is, it's a carbon credit plus a payment for biodiversity outcomes, okay? And I'm about to tell you that in the Queensland, they're paying $49 for a $26 ACCU. Now, Queensland is the most advanced in this. But what they have come to understand is that, so all of these biodiversity ones are on top of the carbon farming methods. You literally have to do a carbon farming method. There will be some stewardship ones. There are straight stewardship ones coming as well. But literally, in the ones I'm about to describe, you have to do, let's call it a tree planting, an ERF tree planting exercise. Because what the powers that be have understood is that the amount of rigour that goes into that, the amount of reporting, the amount of monitoring that is needed, makes it easy to tack something else onto the end of it by counting the biodiversity improvements as you go along. And so they've based it on those things. In Queensland, they've got the Land Restoration Fund, $500 million commitment to buy or assist to buy ACCU pluses. Only today, there was this is Central Queensland graziers have today, this is today's news, have today sold the first ever credits under the Queensland Government's Land Restoration Fund. Part of this first delivery of Australian carbon credit units has been sold to the Queensland Government, with further purchases confirmed for the next 10 years. It's real, it's happening, it's there. So farmers have to commit not only to the rules of the ERF, but also to the rules around the monitoring. But they're complementary. It doesn't take much to tack on the biodiversity. to it. So the first, they approved 18 projects and they paid $49. Second round, WA has followed suit. New South Wales hasn't got something exactly like this. And Queensland also has reef credits, like we said at the beginning, and you can be paid to modify your nitrogenous fertiliser emissions down to the reef. And my diagram of the future. Victorian Action, I had to look this up. So, you know, I'm not highly informed on this one, but I'm happy to become so. It also, there's a 15.3 million Victorian carbon farming one, another avenue. So this program, and this is straight from the site, this program will support private landholders to plant agroforestry, there we go, farm of the future, and shelter belt trees. Access existing carbon markets. Sounds like you'll have to do an ERF project, similar to the others. And realise on-farm benefits and new income streams. Government will also support the agriculture and primary sectors in you know, adaptation. So, Stephanie, I think you guys need to go to that site, see if you can find a contact, and I'm happy to, you know, help you to understand, you know, if there is there any further information, when's it starting, who can you contact, how can you get on some pilot list, all of those things. Because right
I've gone
here,
round and round in circles and not
oh,
found
you
anything.
have?
Well, I have tried, and you just kind of keep going in a circle, like click this link and this link, and then you get back to the start and you're like, how did I do that? Because I didn't get anything out of it, and it was just pretty pictures and kind of umbrella statements. So hopefully some more hard details soon. I'll just keep an eye out.
Well, don't worry. I mean, the one that I'm just about to tell you about has, you know, this is the bit that I got out of a newspaper. So, you know, this is the type of thing. It's coming, and they've got little snippets like stewardship pilot funds available, but, you know, just not yet is the idea. So now we're at the feds, federal action and co-benefits. The Clean Energy Regulator now makes the methods. This is what's emerging. And we have a 2021 soil carbon method that's from a 2014 soil carbon method. So 3 iterations. We've gone from a T-model Ford method in 2014. Now we're at a Volkswagen. So we've still got a long way to go to get to the Ferrari, but we're on an evolutionary you know, stage. So further efforts to pay for the co-benefits, the Carbon plus Biodiversity Pilot, and I was most annoyed when this pilot came out and it had Central West in it as a pilot area that you go into this stewardship Carbon plus Biodiversity, but it wasn't my area of the Central West. It was the next door one. So you have to be, you know, like these pilots, I don't know how you get on a pilot, but you want to be on one of these pilots if you can get there. And this is the one that comes from here. There's also a stewardship pilot to pilot market-based approaches, no details, 23 million in the last budget. And there are other efforts. That second last one is very interesting. Further to this, there is a genuine attempt to streamline the ERF. We need to make it less complex so that more individual farmers can do it. It was never meant to be that you had to have a carbon project developer. It's simply that the methods are complex. So they've got a genuine attempt, and that's another thing that is on my plate to do. Consultation paper, streamlining the Emissions Reduction Fund Environmental Plantings Pilot. So there's a lot going on in order that farmers can improve and get that. My concept is to use some tools. Why can't we have it that we type in, you know, the acres, you know, how many cattle we've got, this, that, and the other thing, all of the information that you need, and it spits out what you need to do, and does the calculations. It's the calculations that are so complex. I can't do them. I have to have technical people to do them. So I'm going to finish up there, and I'm going to say that we have got the 10th Carbon Farming Conference and Expo coming up. It is in May of next year, but that's very deliberate because if they keep us behind bars for any longer than the new year, I think there will be civil disobedience, and you can all come to Albury, and we'll see what happens there. But I do genuinely believe that we'll be able to do face-to-face by May of next year. It's a great party when we get together. I have got virtual seats. I will have virtual seats as well. So yeah, we're doing that next year, and that just tells you why we're doing it. And that one just tells you that we can do all of those difficult things that I've just been talking about. Because in the School of Hard Knocks, I have learnt to do them. So no, that's for later. So I thank you very much. I hope I haven't confused you too much. Do we have any questions, Stephanie?
Yes, we've got one from Janice. Who takes the lead in aggregation?
Well, it has been project developers. Soil carbon is a much harder one to aggregate, but trees could be done with a group, so a land care group or a beef group, with a group of farmers who have some connection already. Now, land cares are perfect because they're very good at planting trees. And because, the most important thing, the most expensive thing in the tree planting is finding the trees and getting them in. It's the simplest of the ones to develop. You plant the trees, you look after the trees. If they die, you replace them. You keep them out from fire, and you audit them, and you make sure the weeds don't grow. And you can graze them after they've come to the browse line. You can't, if you eat the carbon with a cow, well, then you're going to sell the carbon through the cow, not through the tree. So you can sort of like, you can have your carbon one way or the other, but not both. So I hope that helps. And look, this pilot is specific around the tree planting, but I would be exploring it with whatever group that you're in. And I'm not sure what the council is willing to do, but people like that, well, this is what they're doing. They're giving you the education, for goodness sakes. This isn't available anywhere else. You can't go to school. You can't go to TAFE. So this is the only way at the moment. I am talking to Monash University, by the way, to see if we can't get some higher education going. But does that answer the question?
We'll wait to hear from Janice. And I'll also add, Louisa's going to spend a lot of time fleshing out aggregations in a few webinars time. There's lots to get through, and it's super content heavy, and we don't want to blow your brains. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've heard this, and I think I'm actually understanding it now. But
there you go.
Just give it a bit of time and stick with it, because it's heavy.
When we first started, we used to sit in meetings and be quiet as a mouse because we didn't understand a thing that was going on. That was in the USA at the time. So, yeah. Anything else that
we've got a couple more. Do these all have to be new plantings?
Yes, and yes. Unfortunately, yes. If you planted 2 years ago, if you planted 1 year ago, I'm really sorry, but please don't call me up, because I hate to disappoint people. But look, maybe the stewardship payments will come along for that. Yeah, the stewardship payments should not be attached to an ERF project. As far as I can see, it might be a different category. So don't lose hope. It's just that you can't have it in an ERF. The number one thing you have to do before you do anything else, before you plant a tree or before you do anything for your soil carbon is register the project. That's the first thing. If that's the only message you take home tonight, you won't make that mistake. But and people also ask me, I've got a beautiful back paddock and it's got thick bush on it. You know, get me a carbon credit. Unfortunately, I can't. It goes back to that slide that says that you have to do something new. I've got some nice trees on my place. The council here has got some nice areas full of nice mature trees. You can't get a carbon credit for the mature trees.
Val asks, you provided an example of overgrazed land being revegetated naturally as a result of removal of goats. What is involved in assessing the land initially and then the monitoring process?
Okay, good question. You assess the land using maps and satellites, and what they show is already forest, which has to be excluded just for the reasons I've just said, and not bare earth, but non-forest. And so you assess on those areas. It does need to be, our smallest one in that is 3,000 hectares. And that's, it was marginal, it's becoming less marginal now because of the price of carbon, but just be aware that it's more marginal country, low abatement per hectare, therefore needs larger areas.
Okay, so we'll be sticking to the soil carbon and the environmental planting methods then.
And all of the biodiversity and all of the stewardships. Yep. But you guys can't do blue carbon, can you? You're not coastal at all, correct? We're not in a coastal area.
No, inland.
But other areas of Victoria will be able to do what they call blue carbon, restoration of mangroves, and there's a whole stack of work going on in those sort of areas as well. Agroforestry might become available to you. Yeah, all of those. Or plantation. It's a more difficult one, but yeah, plantations, it's worth looking into.
What's the minimum size for a soil carbon project?
There is no minimum. So environmental plantings 0.2 of a hectare is the minimum, but you can't make money out of it. Soil carbon, it's more like, how much how small can it be and that I can still make a buck out of, Now, there is a tool that I haven't got on these slides yet that I should put there. And Stephanie, did I tell you about the Look-See, LOOC-C? Yeah? Can you put it in there at all?
I'll get the website, I'll stick it in the chat.
Yeah. Now, that is the CSIRO site. So, and you can play about in there with your hectares, both for a soil carbon project and a tree carbon project. So long as you've got the skill to draw a polygon around your area, once you find it, we could go through one of those in one of these if we can get a website up and things, Stephanie, because it's the closest thing you've got to estimating what you can get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have had to play around with it, and it's
yeah. So if a farmer gives us their DP lots, or we can find it on that map and draw that polygon, we could show them one time.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to use.
I can't draw those stupid polygons. I can never find the right place.
I think you can search for your address quite easily, or search where you want and then be guided.
Yes, good. You can do it on my old farm for me.
Okay, sounds good. I'll send me the address.
Okay, anything else?
No, we're up to date. Any last minute questions, anyone, or anything more complicated that we need to go back and make sure we include in the next webinar? If you would like to email any feedback or anything you'd really like to know. We can make sure that it's covered in the next one. So the next webinar will be in a week and a bit, Thursday of next week. Same time.
Okay, all good. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, you can, your homework is to go back through the slides, go to look, see, and you know, like if it's not for you, it's not for you. But you've sat for an hour and found out a little bit about it. So all good.
Excellent. And yes, if you're not sure, do stick around, because Louisa is going to go through aggregations, and I think that is a really important option for working with lots of groups of small landowners. So we'll see everyone next week. Have a good evening.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Louisa.
No problem.